The Kingdom of Sicily, Part 1, From Ancient Crossroads to Norman Rule. The island of Sicily, located at the heart of the Mediterranean Sea, has always been a land of conquest, trade, and cultural exchange. Its history is marked by waves of migration, war, and empire. Before the Kingdom of Sicily was officially born in the 12th century, the island had already passed through the hands of many great civilizations. By the time the Normans arrived in the 11th century, Sicily had become a unique blend of Greek, Roman, Arab, and Byzantine traditions. It was on this rich foundation that the Kingdom of Sicily was built. Sicily had long been known to ancient peoples. The Greeks and Phoenicians settled the island during the first millennium before Christ. The island became home to a mix of cultures and was fiercely contested. The Greeks founded cities like Syracuse, while the Phoenicians and later the Carthaginians controlled the western part. In the 3rd century BC, Rome fought the Punic Wars against Carthage and eventually took control of the island. Sicily became the first Roman province outside of Italy. Under Roman rule, it became an important source of grain and remained relatively peaceful for centuries. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century, Sicily became part of the Ostrogothic kingdom. Then, in the mid-6th century, it was reconquered by the Eastern Roman Empire, also known as the Byzantine Empire, under the general Belisarius during the reign of Emperor Justinian. For the next 3 centuries, Sicily remained under Byzantine rule, though it often faced invasions and raids from other peoples, including the Lombards and later the Arabs. The Arab conquest of Sicily began in the year 827 AD. Muslim armies from North Africa, mostly Berbers and Arabs under the Aghlabid dynasty of Tunisia, launched an invasion of the island. The Byzantines resisted, but they were weak and divided. Over the next 75 years, the Arabs gradually conquered most of Sicily. Palermo fell in 831 and became the new capital of Islamic Sicily. Syracuse held out until 878. The conquest was completed in 902 with the fall of Taormina. Under Arab rule, Sicily became a wealthy and cosmopolitan society. The Muslims introduced new crops, irrigation techniques, and advanced learning. Cities like Palermo flourished as centers of trade, art, and science. Arabic became the language of government and scholarship, though many Christians and Jews remained on the island. These non-Muslims, called dhimmi, were allowed to keep their religion but had to pay a special tax. Despite religious differences, Sicily during this period was a place of relative tolerance and coexistence. By the early 11th century, however, the Aghlabid dynasty had been replaced by the Fatimids and later the Kalbid emirs. The island began to fragment. Internal rivalries among Muslim leaders weakened central authority. The population remained diverse, including Muslim Arabs and Berbers, Greek-speaking Christians, Latin Christians, and Jews. It was this divided and complex land that attracted the attention of new conquerors from the north, the Normans. The Normans were originally Vikings who had settled in northern France and adopted the local language and customs. By the early 11th century, some Norman knights had traveled to southern Italy as mercenaries, helping local princes in their wars. Gradually, they carved out their own territories. Among the most successful was Robert Guiscard of the Hauteville family. His younger brother, Roger, would become the key figure in the conquest of Sicily. In 1061, Roger I and Robert Guiscard began their campaign to conquer the island from the Muslims. The Normans were few in number, but they were skilled warriors and brilliant strategists. They exploited the political divisions among the Muslim emirs. They also gained support from the Latin Christian population and even some Greek Christians who were tired of Muslim rule. The campaign lasted 30 years. The first major victory came in 1061 with the capture of Messina. Over the next 2 decades, Roger slowly pushed south and west. Palermo, the Muslim capital, fell in 1072 after a long siege. Syracuse was taken in 1086. The final Muslim stronghold, Noto, fell in 1091. By then, all of Sicily was under Norman control. Roger I was named Count of Sicily and ruled as a vassal of his brother Robert Guiscard, who held the title Duke of Apulia and Calabria. Under Roger I, Sicily remained a land of many cultures and religions. Rather than destroy the existing social order, Roger maintained much of the administrative system left by the Muslims. He employed Arab and Greek officials, tolerated the practice of Islam and Judaism, and encouraged Latin Christian immigration. He built churches and monasteries while also preserving mosques and palaces. This policy of coexistence and pragmatism would become a hallmark of Norman rule in Sicily. Roger I died in 1101. His young son, Roger II, succeeded him under the regency of his mother Adelaide. Roger II would go on to become one of the most remarkable rulers in medieval Europe. He not only continued the policies of his father but also expanded Norman power and transformed the county of Sicily into a kingdom. In 1127, Roger II inherited the mainland territories of Apulia and Calabria after the death of his cousin William of the Hauteville line. He now controlled nearly all of southern Italy in addition to Sicily. Roger sought to unite his lands under a single crown. He negotiated with the Pope and the Holy Roman Emperor for recognition of his authority. Though there was resistance and conflict, Roger eventually secured a royal title. On Christmas Day in the year 1130, Roger II was crowned King of Sicily in the Cathedral of Palermo. The Kingdom of Sicily was officially born. It included not only the island but also vast parts of southern Italy. It was one of the most powerful and wealthy states in the Mediterranean. The coronation of Roger marked the beginning of a new era. Under his rule, the kingdom would become a beacon of culture, administration, and religious tolerance. The Kingdom of Sicily, Part 2, The Golden Age under Roger II. The coronation of Roger II in 1130 was more than just a political achievement. It was the beginning of one of the most extraordinary reigns in medieval European history. Roger II was not only a warrior and a king, but also a skilled administrator and a visionary leader. Under his rule, the Kingdom of Sicily became one of the most prosperous and enlightened states in the 12th century world. Roger II ruled from his capital in Palermo. The city, already a center of learning and trade during the Arab period, now flourished as the heart of a multi-ethnic and multicultural kingdom. The court of Roger was unlike any in Europe. Latin Christians, Greek-speaking Byzantines, Arab Muslims, and Jews all played important roles in government, culture, and the sciences. One of Roger's most important achievements was the creation of a strong central government. He wanted to rule not as a feudal overlord who depended on powerful barons, but as a true king with direct control over his lands. To achieve this, he built a professional bureaucracy that relied on educated officials from various backgrounds. Many of his administrators were Muslim or Greek, because they were experienced in record-keeping, tax collection, and law. Roger issued a legal code known as the Assizes of Ariano in 1140. It was designed to strengthen royal authority and establish clear rules for justice and administration. The code applied to all subjects regardless of religion or ethnicity. While the kingdom still allowed local customs in certain regions, especially among the Greek-speaking or Muslim populations, the king's law was supreme. Roger also promoted economic development. Sicily was already a wealthy land thanks to its agriculture, trade routes, and ports. Roger encouraged international commerce, inviting merchants from across the Mediterranean and even northern Europe. The kingdom's currency, minted in Palermo, was accepted in many foreign markets. Arab engineers improved irrigation and farming. New crops like citrus fruits and sugar cane became widespread. Roger's reign was also a time of remarkable cultural achievement. His court attracted scholars, poets, scientists, and architects from many lands. He commissioned maps, treatises, and translations of Greek and Arabic texts. One of the most famous works from this period was the Book of Roger, written by the Arab geographer Al-Idrisi. This detailed world atlas was one of the most advanced geographical works of its time, showing the extent of knowledge from Muslim, Greek, and Latin sources. Roger's architecture was equally symbolic of his vision. He blended Norman, Arab, and Byzantine styles to create some of the most beautiful buildings in medieval Europe. The Palatine Chapel in Palermo, built between 1132 and 1140, remains a masterpiece of art and architecture. It features Christian mosaics, Islamic geometric designs, and Arabic calligraphy all under one roof. Other landmarks like the Church of San Giovanni degli Eremiti and the Cathedral of Cefalù reflect the same cultural fusion. In foreign affairs, Roger II aimed to expand his influence and protect his realm from outside threats. He clashed with the papacy, which resented his independence and power. He also faced invasions from northern Italian rivals and the Holy Roman Empire. Despite these conflicts, Roger maintained control through diplomacy, marriage alliances, and military campaigns. Roger launched naval expeditions into North Africa, capturing several coastal cities in what is now Tunisia and Libya. These conquests were partly driven by a desire to protect Christian shipping and partly by economic interest. For a time, the Kingdom of Sicily controlled a chain of ports across the central Mediterranean. This made it a maritime power that could challenge even the Byzantine and Islamic fleets. Roger II ruled until his death in 1154. By that time, the Kingdom of Sicily had become one of the most admired states in Europe. Its wealth, cultural achievements, and administrative efficiency made it stand out in an age of feudal fragmentation and constant war. Roger was succeeded by his son William I. William I inherited a strong and stable kingdom, but his reign faced immediate challenges. He came to power as enemies of Norman Sicily tried to exploit the moment of transition. The Pope, the Holy Roman Emperor, and rebellious nobles in southern Italy all moved against him. William responded with determination and force. Though not as brilliant as his father, he proved capable of defending the realm. William I was often called William the Bad by chroniclers hostile to his rule. Much of this reputation comes from the aristocracy, who resented his firm grip on power and his reliance on officials from non-Latin backgrounds. However, modern historians argue that William maintained the central institutions of the kingdom and kept it stable through difficult times. In 1160, a major rebellion broke out among the barons and parts of the city population. The revolt was fueled by opposition to William's Arab and Greek administrators. The rebels managed to kill one of his top ministers, Maio of Bari, and took control of Palermo. But William crushed the rebellion and reasserted royal authority. His harsh punishments may have added to his bad reputation, but they also restored order. William died in 1166 and was succeeded by his son William II, who was only 12 years old at the time. During the early years of his reign, the kingdom was governed by a regency council. William II later became known as William the Good. He continued many of the policies of his grandfather and father but was known for his generosity, religious tolerance, and diplomatic skills. Under William II, the Kingdom of Sicily reached the height of its prosperity. The administration remained efficient, the cities thrived, and the multicultural court continued to shine. William built one of the most beautiful churches in the world, the Cathedral of Monreale, combining Norman strength, Arab decoration, and Byzantine mosaic artistry. It remains a symbol of the cultural synthesis that defined Norman Sicily. William II tried to strengthen his kingdom through marriage alliances and diplomacy. He negotiated with both the Byzantine Empire and the Latin Crusader states in the Levant. At one point, he even planned to marry a Byzantine princess, though the alliance fell apart. In 1177, he signed the Treaty of Venice, helping to bring peace between the Pope, the Emperor, and the northern Italian cities. This raised his status as a powerful and respected ruler in European politics. William died in 1189 without a direct heir. His death marked the beginning of a period of uncertainty and conflict over the succession. The Norman dynasty that had ruled Sicily for over a century was coming to an end. The powerful and wealthy kingdom that Roger II had built was now at the center of a struggle between rival claimants. The Kingdom of Sicily, Part 3, From the Normans to the Hohenstaufen. When King William II of Sicily died in 1189 without a direct heir, the powerful kingdom was left vulnerable. William's passing marked the end of the Norman Hauteville dynasty, and a struggle began over who would inherit one of the wealthiest and most admired realms in the Mediterranean. This period of uncertainty drew in powerful figures from across Europe and changed the future of Sicily forever. William had arranged for his aunt, Constance, the daughter of Roger II, to marry Henry VI, the son of the Holy Roman Emperor Frederick Barbarossa. Constance had a legitimate claim to the throne as the last surviving child of Roger II. But her marriage to Henry made the Sicilian nobility nervous. They feared that their kingdom would be absorbed into the vast and often chaotic Holy Roman Empire, losing its autonomy and unique identity. Instead of recognizing Constance and Henry, the Sicilian nobles chose Tancred of Lecce, an illegitimate cousin of William II, as king. Tancred was popular among the barons and had support from the Pope. He was crowned in 1190 and ruled for 5 years, fighting off attempts by Henry and Constance to claim the throne. But Tancred's reign was short and troubled. He died in 1194, leaving the kingdom to his young son, who was quickly overthrown by Henry VI. Henry marched into Sicily with an army, defeated the opposition, and had himself crowned king of Sicily in Palermo in 1194. His wife Constance was also crowned queen. The island was now part of the Holy Roman Empire. The Hohenstaufen dynasty had taken control. Henry died just 2 years later, in 1197, leaving behind his 3-year-old son, Frederick. Queen Constance acted quickly to secure her son's claim to the throne. She declared Sicily an independent kingdom under Frederick's rule and sought protection from the Pope. Constance died in 1198, and Frederick was placed under the guardianship of Pope Innocent III. This arrangement made Frederick a ward of the papacy, and for a time, Sicily was closely tied to Rome. But Frederick would grow into one of the most ambitious and remarkable rulers of the Middle Ages. Crowned King of Sicily in 1198 and later Holy Roman Emperor in 1220, Frederick II ruled over a vast empire stretching from Germany to the southern tip of Italy. Frederick was born in Jesi, in the Italian Marches, but he was raised in Palermo. He spoke multiple languages, including Latin, Arabic, Greek, and Sicilian. He was fascinated by science, philosophy, and religion. His court in Palermo became a center of learning and debate. Scholars, poets, astronomers, and jurists from across Europe and the Islamic world came to Sicily to share ideas. Despite being emperor, Frederick focused much of his attention on Sicily. He admired the island's rich cultural history and saw it as the jewel of his empire. He issued new laws, reorganized the government, and strengthened the monarchy. His legal code, the Constitutions of Melfi or Liber Augustilis, published in 1231, was one of the most advanced in Europe. It limited the power of the nobles, centralized authority in the king, and established a more professional and secular administration. Frederick also continued the policy of religious tolerance, at least in practice. While he was often in conflict with the papacy, he allowed Muslims to live in a special community in Lucera on the mainland, where they served in his army and worked as administrators. This reflected the multicultural tradition of Sicily under the Normans, though tensions between Christian and Muslim communities continued to exist. Frederick saw himself as a new kind of emperor, not just a ruler by divine right, but also a patron of reason and knowledge. He established the University of Naples in 1224, one of the first secular universities in Europe. He wrote treatises on falconry and nature and engaged in correspondence with Muslim scholars. His curiosity and ambition earned him the nickname Stupor Mundi, the wonder of the world. But Frederick's vision of empire often clashed with the papacy. The popes feared that a strong Holy Roman Emperor who also controlled Sicily would dominate Italy and threaten the independence of the Church. Frederick was repeatedly excommunicated, including for failing to launch a crusade on schedule. When he finally did go on crusade in 1228, he negotiated a peaceful agreement with the Muslims that returned Jerusalem to Christian hands, a remarkable achievement, though it angered the Pope. The conflict between the papacy and the Hohenstaufen dynasty would define the next several decades. Frederick died in 1250, and his successors struggled to maintain control. His son Conrad IV became king of Sicily and Germany but ruled for only 4 years. Conrad's son, Conradin, was still a child when he inherited the claim. In the meantime, Frederick's illegitimate son Manfred seized power in Sicily. Manfred was an able leader who tried to preserve his father's legacy. He was crowned king of Sicily in 1258 and ruled for 8 years. Like his predecessors, he faced constant pressure from the papacy, which considered the Hohenstaufen line heretical and illegitimate. In 1266, Pope Urban IV invited Charles of Anjou, the brother of King Louis IX of France, to take the Sicilian crown. Charles led a French army into Italy, defeated Manfred at the Battle of Benevento, and became king of Sicily. Manfred was killed in battle, and the Hohenstaufen rule came to an end. 2 years later, in 1268, young Conradin attempted to reclaim his inheritance but was defeated and executed after the Battle of Tagliacozzo. With the death of Conradin, the last male descendant of the Hohenstaufen dynasty was gone. The Kingdom of Sicily had passed from the Normans to the Germans and now to a French royal house. But this new chapter would be marked by unrest and rebellion. The Kingdom of Sicily, Part 4, The Sicilian Vespers and the Rise of Aragon. When Charles of Anjou became King of Sicily in 1266, he entered the island not just as a new monarch but as a conqueror backed by the papacy. His victory over Manfred, the last of the Hohenstaufen rulers, seemed complete. But Charles's rule would not bring peace. Instead, his policies, taxes, and foreign troops alienated the population and planted the seeds of rebellion. Charles was a French prince, the brother of the famed crusader King Louis IX. The Pope had promised him the Sicilian throne in exchange for defeating the Hohenstaufen. After his victory, Charles moved the capital from Palermo to Naples, showing his preference for the mainland over the island. He raised taxes to support his ambitious military campaigns, staffed his government with French nobles, and showed little respect for Sicilian customs and traditions. The people of Sicily, proud of their island's mixed heritage and past independence, grew resentful. Many saw Charles as a foreign overlord who exploited the island rather than serving it. Tensions worsened due to the presence of French soldiers who often mistreated the locals. Religious tensions, economic burdens, and national pride all combined to create a dangerous situation. The breaking point came on Easter Monday, March 30, 1282, in the city of Palermo. According to legend, a French soldier insulted a Sicilian woman during the evening prayers known as Vespers. An angry crowd gathered, violence broke out, and within hours the city erupted in rebellion. The uprising quickly spread across the island. In a matter of weeks, thousands of French soldiers and settlers were killed. The revolt, known as the Sicilian Vespers, became one of the most famous popular uprisings in medieval Europe. The people of Sicily had made it clear they would not accept foreign rule from Naples. With the French driven from the island, the rebels sought a new ruler to protect them from Charles's revenge. They turned to Peter III of Aragon, who had married Constance, the daughter of Manfred and granddaughter of Frederick II. Peter claimed the Sicilian throne by right of his wife. He landed in Sicily with his army and was welcomed by the people. In 1282, he was crowned King of Sicily in Palermo. Charles of Anjou was furious and launched a campaign to retake the island, but Peter's forces resisted. A long war followed, known as the War of the Sicilian Vespers. The papacy sided with Charles and excommunicated Peter. Naval battles were fought across the Mediterranean. The conflict dragged on for 20 years, and although Charles died in 1285, his son Charles II continued the fight. Finally, in 1302, a peace treaty was signed at Caltabellata. It divided the old Kingdom of Sicily into two parts. The island of Sicily, ruled by Peter's descendants, would be known as the Kingdom of Trinacria, an ancient name for Sicily, but it was still commonly called the Kingdom of Sicily. The mainland territories, centered around Naples, became the Kingdom of Naples, still officially referred to as the Kingdom of Sicily as well, which led to confusion. For the next century, there were two competing kingdoms of Sicily, one in Naples ruled by the Angevins, and one on the island ruled by the Aragonese. Both claimed legitimacy, but in practice, they were two separate kingdoms with different rulers, courts, and interests. Under the Aragonese kings, Sicily remained a culturally rich but politically secondary land. The island continued to have its own parliament, laws, and institutions, but power was concentrated in the hands of a few noble families loyal to the Aragonese crown. The kings often ruled from afar, sending viceroys to govern in their name. The Aragonese rulers were often busy with affairs in Spain and Italy, and Sicily's strategic position in the Mediterranean meant it was constantly involved in wider European conflicts. Pirates raided its coasts, and occasional revolts broke out among the towns or nobles. Yet the island remained a valuable prize, providing grain, soldiers, and ships to the Aragonese crown. In the 14th and 15th centuries, Sicily suffered from economic decline, natural disasters, and plagues. The Black Death reached the island in the mid-1300s, killing a large part of the population. Earthquakes damaged cities and countryside. Despite these hardships, urban life continued in cities like Palermo, Catania, and Messina, where churches, palaces, and markets stood as signs of endurance. The Aragonese continued to hold the island through a series of dynastic shifts. When the crown of Aragon was united with the crown of Castile in 1469 through the marriage of Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile, Sicily became part of what would later be called Spain. Ferdinand, who would go on to sponsor Columbus's voyages, also ruled Sicily as king. With the rise of Spanish power in Europe, Sicily became a province of a vast empire. Although it retained nominal autonomy, real control passed to Spanish-appointed viceroys who governed in the name of the Spanish king. This began a new era of foreign rule, where Sicily was caught in the struggles between Spain, France, and other European powers. The Kingdom of Sicily, Part 5, Spanish Rule and the Path to Italian Unification. By the late 15th century, the Kingdom of Sicily had become a possession of the Spanish crown. After the union of Aragon and Castile in 1469, Sicily, along with Naples and Sardinia, was ruled as part of the growing Spanish Empire. While the island retained its name and some of its own institutions, real power was now held by Spanish-appointed viceroys who answered to the monarchs in Madrid. The Spanish period in Sicily lasted for over 2 centuries. During this time, the island was both a strategic stronghold and a deeply exploited province. The viceroys governed from Palermo and were responsible for enforcing royal decrees, collecting taxes, maintaining order, and defending the island. The King of Spain was still officially King of Sicily, but he rarely set foot on the island. Spanish rule brought some stability but also reinforced a rigid social hierarchy. The nobility retained great privileges, while peasants bore the burden of taxation and lived under feudal obligations. The Catholic Church remained powerful and closely tied to the monarchy. Inquisitors were active in Sicily, especially during the 16th and 17th centuries. Jewish communities were expelled in 1492, as they were across Spanish territories, ending centuries of Jewish presence on the island. Economically, Sicily struggled under Spanish rule. High taxes, trade restrictions, and feudal landholding practices limited growth. Agriculture remained the main source of wealth, especially wheat production, but the benefits were unevenly distributed. Grain exports helped feed other parts of the empire, but the island itself often suffered from poverty and food shortages. Culturally, however, the period saw achievements in art, architecture, and religious life. The Baroque style flourished in Sicilian churches and palaces. Palermo, Catania, and other cities were adorned with grand buildings, often funded by noble families or the church. Religious festivals and traditions grew in scale and importance, becoming central to Sicilian identity. Sicily's location continued to make it a key strategic point in the Mediterranean. The island was often threatened by the Ottoman Empire, whose fleets and corsairs raided coastal towns and captured ships. Spanish and local forces fortified cities and built coastal watchtowers to defend against these attacks. Naval battles were fought across the Mediterranean, and Sicily served as a base for Christian fleets in conflicts such as the Battle of Lepanto in 1571. In the 17th century, Sicily faced several major crises. Economic stagnation worsened. Plague struck in the 1620s and again in the 1650s, killing large parts of the population. In 1693, a massive earthquake devastated eastern Sicily, especially the cities of Catania and Noto. Tens of thousands died, and entire towns had to be rebuilt. Despite the destruction, the rebuilding effort led to the creation of some of the most beautiful Baroque architecture in Europe, which still stands today. As Spain declined as a European power in the late 17th century, its territories became targets for other dynasties. After the death of the childless Spanish king Charles II in 1700, a major war broke out in Europe known as the War of the Spanish Succession. Sicily was passed between different powers as part of the peace settlements. In 1713, it was granted to the House of Savoy, rulers of Piedmont in northern Italy. But this arrangement did not last long. In 1720, Sicily was exchanged for Sardinia, and the island was handed over to the Austrian Habsburgs. Austrian rule was brief and largely unpopular. The islanders, especially the nobility and clergy, resented foreign interference and hoped for more autonomy. In 1734, during the War of the Polish Succession, a young Spanish prince named Charles of Bourbon invaded southern Italy with the support of France and Spain. His army drove out the Austrians, and Charles was crowned king of Naples and Sicily. He ruled the two kingdoms as separate entities, each with its own government and traditions, but under his personal authority. Charles was the founder of the Bourbon dynasty in southern Italy. He ruled until 1759, when he became King of Spain. His son Ferdinand inherited Naples and Sicily and ruled as Ferdinand IV of Naples and Ferdinand III of Sicily. Under Bourbon rule, some reforms were attempted, but the old structures of power, the monarchy, the church, and the landed aristocracy, remained dominant. In the late 18th century, revolutionary ideas from France began to spread through Europe. The French Revolution and the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte had a direct impact on Sicily. In 1799, revolutionaries established a short-lived republic in Naples, forcing Ferdinand to flee to Sicily. The British Navy helped protect the island, and for a time, Sicily became a base for anti-French forces. During this period, Ferdinand ruled Sicily with British support, and under pressure from the British, he granted a constitution to the island in 1812. The constitution promised representative government, civil rights, and limits on royal power. However, after Napoleon's defeat and the restoration of monarchies across Europe, the constitution was abolished. In 1816, Ferdinand merged the Kingdom of Naples and the Kingdom of Sicily into a single state, the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies, with its capital in Naples. This decision angered many Sicilians, who saw it as the loss of their ancient kingdom and autonomy. Discontent simmered, especially among the middle classes and intellectuals inspired by liberal and nationalist ideas. In the mid-19th century, movements for Italian unification gained momentum. Sicily became a center of revolutionary activity. In 1848, a major uprising broke out in Palermo, part of a wider wave of revolutions across Europe. Sicilians declared independence from Naples and tried to restore the 1812 constitution. However, after 16 months of resistance, the Neapolitan army crushed the rebellion in 1849. The final chapter of the Kingdom of Sicily came in 1860, when the famous Italian general Giuseppe Garibaldi landed in western Sicily with a small army of volunteers, known as the Thousand. His campaign to liberate the south and unite Italy began in Marsala. He quickly gained support from local revolutionaries and peasants, who saw his arrival as a chance to overthrow Bourbon rule. Garibaldi's army marched across the island, winning battles at Calatafimi and Palermo. The Bourbon forces were defeated, and Garibaldi crossed into the mainland, capturing Naples. In 1861, the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies was annexed to the new Kingdom of Italy, with Victor Emmanuel II of Savoy proclaimed king. The ancient Kingdom of Sicily, born in 1130 and shaped by Normans, Germans, Aragonese, Spanish, and Bourbons, ceased to exist as an independent political entity. It had lasted for more than 700 years in one form or another. Its history was complex, often tragic, but also rich with culture, resilience, and a legacy that continues to shape the identity of the island and its people. The Kingdom of Sicily, Part 6, Legacy and Historical Memory. Though the Kingdom of Sicily officially ended with the unification of Italy in 1861, its long and complex history has left a deep mark on the identity of the island and its people. More than 7 centuries of monarchy, conquest, resistance, and cultural exchange have shaped how Sicilians see themselves and how the rest of the world views Sicily. The legacy of the Norman kingdom is still visible across the island. In Palermo, Monreale, Cefalù, and other cities, magnificent cathedrals stand as monuments to the early days of the kingdom. These churches are not only religious symbols but also works of art, blending Arab, Byzantine, and Western European styles into something uniquely Sicilian. The Royal Palace in Palermo, once home to Roger II, still holds the famous Palatine Chapel, with its gold mosaics and inscriptions in Greek, Latin, and Arabic. The memory of multiculturalism during the Norman and Hohenstaufen periods remains a source of pride for many Sicilians. Scholars, poets, and historians often point to this time as a model of tolerance and coexistence between Christians, Muslims, and Jews. Although that era ended long ago and was followed by more turbulent centuries, the idea of Sicily as a crossroads of civilizations continues to influence its cultural image. The Spanish and Bourbon periods were more controversial. While they brought some order and artistic patronage, they also reinforced inequality and centralized control. The heavy presence of the church, the nobility, and foreign rulers deepened the divide between the ruling elite and the rest of the population. Memories of oppression, poverty, and injustice during these centuries are still present in Sicilian folklore and popular narratives. After unification with Italy, many Sicilians hoped for improvement and national renewal. But the reality was more complicated. The new government in the north often misunderstood or neglected the south. Land reforms were slow, economic development was uneven, and corruption remained a problem. Many Sicilians came to feel that they had exchanged one distant ruler for another. Tensions between the north and south of Italy, often called the Southern Question, have roots in the centuries of separate development that included the history of the Kingdom of Sicily. During the 20th century, Sicily went through dramatic changes. It was a battlefield during World War II, suffering bombings and military occupation. In 1946, after the fall of the Italian monarchy, Italy became a republic. Sicily was granted special autonomy, with its own parliament and greater control over internal affairs. This autonomy was a recognition of the island's unique history and the deep sense of local identity. Sicilian identity remains strong. People on the island often speak of themselves as Sicilians first and Italians second. The dialect, cuisine, traditions, and customs of Sicily are distinct from those of mainland Italy. From food like arancini and cannoli to festivals honoring patron saints, Sicilian culture remains deeply rooted in the past. In popular culture, the history of the Kingdom of Sicily has been both romanticized and dramatized. Novels, films, and television series have depicted the island's medieval grandeur, its noble families, and its turbulent political life. The image of Sicily as a land of ancient kings, dramatic landscapes, and deep traditions continues to draw tourists, artists, and historians from around the world. In academic history, scholars continue to explore the complexities of the kingdom. New research has shed light on the roles of minority communities, the workings of royal administration, and the relationships between Sicily and the wider Mediterranean world. The island is increasingly seen not as a peripheral land but as a central piece in the puzzle of European and Middle Eastern history. The rise and fall of the Kingdom of Sicily tells a story of ambition, resilience, diversity, and struggle. From its foundation under Roger II to its absorption into modern Italy, the kingdom experienced golden ages and dark periods, foreign domination and native revival, cultural flowering and social hardship. It stood at the center of Mediterranean politics, trade, and war for centuries. Today, the ruins of castles, the spires of cathedrals, the narrow streets of old cities, and the voices of the people all carry traces of this long and layered history. The Kingdom of Sicily may no longer exist on any map, but it lives on in the memories, monuments, and identity of the island that once bore its crown.